Thank you, Misan, for joining us on this episode of Third Culture Africans. It's a pleasure having you. Are you comfortable?
Yep, I just want to balance.
Okay. I guess the premise of the show for me, when I had the grand idea of creating a show that spoke to, by and large, a lot of my friends, who I respected in their individual endeavors. But nonetheless, we all seem to have a collective, in terms of an upbringing, we're all third culture kids. And having a show that was very much geared towards, I guess, our voice, because I think we're able to do something within the ecosystem that you don't find often. And when I had a list of guests, actually, you were one of the very first guests on my list. So I'm glad that I managed to pin you down.
It's like, get him, he'll go to the opening of an envelope. It's easy.
And you're an incredibly busy guy. You are the founder of What We See. And I'll let you get into what We See is in a little bit.
Yep.
Because I don't want to give it all away. But it is a game-changing digital publishing company, if I can say that.
Yeah, I don't even know. It's an octopus these days. It started out as that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome to Third Culture Africans, the lifestyle podcast for dreamers, thinkers, and doers. We celebrate artistry, share stories from those brave enough to create something and succeed, listen to diverse perspectives on African success, and those shifting the needle on culture. I'm Zeze Sao, your host. On this week's episode of Third Culture Africans, we have a brilliant mind who is taking digital real estate and publishing from the heart with a ton of empathy, a champion of love, and an incredible giant who is doing purposeful work with an emotional connection. Help me welcome Misan Harriman of What We See. You are now notably becoming an incredibly sought after photographer. I guess your style will be considered photojournalistic.
Yeah, reportage style, candid, definitely the opposite of like high fashion editorial.
And self-taught in 2 years.
Yeah, YouTube. Shout out YouTube. It's not just madness, not just cat videos.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Great pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming. I get this question, so what are you going to ask me? And you asked that just before we started rolling. I try not to put questions out before because I think I love watching and hearing people, and also people hearing themselves share bits of their journey which they've discounted or discredited as a part of how they've ended up where they are today.
Yeah, sure.
And I think in the quest for entrepreneurship and building businesses or brands, we seldomly take the time out to almost look back at our timeline and see how we've arrived where we are. Yeah. Because a lot of the time you're in the trenches.
You're too busy, yeah.
You're just in the trenches, just trying
swimming
to execute.
Upstream, yeah.
Yeah, execute a vision. And this is a great way to do that. So I always mention how I know my guests. I remember meeting you. I don't want to
say... Was it at a disco?
Yeah, it was after a disco.
A disco, okay.
After a disco.
Okay.
I remember meeting you in 2000, I want to say 2007.
How do you even remember this?
Oh, because my memory is sharp.
It's scary.
2007, and it was, I think I was just, it was like one of those like club nights, and then you're rolling into the Den because they did the...
The Den. Oh
Den.
My God. Kilburn High Road.
Memories.
Balo's Place. Niger food. Yeah. With every sort of character. All walks of life.
Everybody went to the Den.
Yes.
And I
remember... Including a well-fed rat.
Yeah.
That I once saw casually leaving in an afternoon. And the rat looked at me and was like, yeah, what?
Oh, God.
I see you. Oh, God.
Oh, goodness me. And I remember sort of darting in because, you're young and you think, oh, I'm gorgeous. And I remember darting in. And then I think you had your mini then.
Yeah.
Did you have
a
your
smart
maid?
car?
Oh,
Smart
you had
car.
something.
Yeah,
some
something
tiny
small.
something.
Yeah, that's typical me.
And then you're like, hey, who are you?
Lyrics. Can I know you?
I don't think it wasn't very much a can I know you, but I just thought, how odd.
Yes.
And I think we both had a bit of a dry sense of humor. And it was, again, a den evening where everyone's had a bit to drink.
Yeah,
And
I mean, just for the den was similar to sort of Cafe LN on Edgware Road. It's one of those places people, when they're inebriated, go and they run into other people or make new friends drunk, eating, in the den's context, Nigerian food, which is something most Nigerians yearn for when they've had a little bit of liquor in them. That's exactly where, apparently, I met you in 2007.
I think then we started talking about movies and you shared your passion for movies. And I would watch movies pre-children. It was a pastime.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was music. And then for me at the time, there was art and photography. Unbeknownst to me, you were known.
Was I known?
I think you were known then. You were still making quite a lot of money then as a headhunter.
You're so funny.
You were.
Everything's relative. I mean, you know, I was a working headhunter pre-08. It was a good run.
This podcast is sponsored by Malay Natural Science. Malay's products are inspired by the rich landscapes, alluring scents, and ancient wisdom of Africa. Their luxurious fragrance and body care range balances 100% natural active ingredients and scientifically proven formulas to heal, protect, and pamper your skin. Malay ships worldwide, and you can buy their products at maleeonline.com. They also offer a free sample if you'd like to try. So your
Lots of
first business was?
Well, my first business was not headhunting. It was after I dropped out of university. So
Day one?
Day one. I mean, hour two.
Insert cringe for every African parent.
Yeah. No, I'm a university dropout too. Sorry, auntie. Not wanting to go back home or to London, I set up a promote club night doing parties with my brother and a few friends because we knew through kind of our sports exploits and the kind of schools that we went to and being pretty much the only black friends of a lot of of our crew, and that was when hip hop was just becoming, Diddy was, it was becoming real popular culture. We said, look, why don't we just do nights where we get DJs and play the music that we like instead of people taking their shirts off and singing Oasis songs. We can give them something to really shake to.
Very true.
And it just kicked off.
So your first night was where?
It's not something I'm super proud of, but it was kind of R&B and hip hop nights for posh people. That was
and to get babes.
But it grew, and we had a network of friends, so we were doing nights, and we're making a lot of money. But when you're 19, 18 years old, making like cash in hand. So this is 99.
What club did you guys put your parties on?
Oh my God, this is in Bristol initially. So we did places like Punana and the place called Steam Rock, and then we moved. They started doing a place called Cabaret, and then I did a few guest list kind of only things at China White.
Oh God!
And then we had our own night at Movida.
Oh God!
All of that sort of stuff. But then we just spend all the money we made at Bougie's. And Jake Parkinson, if you're listening, you must be a rich man. But it was great. It was a really nice time, and it was pre the social media sort of Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Vine, everything, Facebook of era. So we were freer and we can make mistakes and you can act a fool. And also there was a lot less of an aspirational nature. Yes, boys will be boys and they will try and buy champagne they can't afford to impress women that don't care. But it's not the same thing now where young people are saving all of their money so they can put something on a newsfeed.
For the gram.
Yeah. We didn't have any of that.
No.
And, also with women, the over-sexualization of the female form, which is something I have a huge issue about algorithmically how that works, especially on Instagram.
We'll get to the activist side of you soon.
Anyway, so...
the feminist in you. As well as the civil rights and human rights activist.
So my first job was doing club nights, and I did that in Bristol before moving to London, and then I got into headhunting with one of my oldest school friends, and we had a wonderful time moving lawyers and bankers pre-08.
But it wasn't just any tea, a lawyer and banker.
No. We specialize in moving partners from mainly Magic Circle law firms, so, Licknators, Clifford Chance, that sort of thing, to kind of white shoe, New York, DC, Boston law firms that were opening up in London. So they were offering 3-4 times the salary. And that's when I really understood the English gentleman, subtle way, I'd call a partner and say, blah, 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 we'll do all the flirting, and I'll just say, listen, you're on, let's say he's on 400 grand,
Yeah.
they can offer you like 1.5
Yeah.
base.
Yeah.
A traditional middle upper class Englishman can't just say, "Oh my God, that's so much money, give it to
Hey!
me."
See how
This is interesting. I mean, sorry, can you repeat the number again? Because I was, okay, maybe I can call you after work. And then this guy will call me at like 1 a.m. He goes, "My Lord, that's really, I mean, I have to speak to the wife, but it seems very interesting, don't you think?" I said, this man's taking the money.
Nonsense, just to make money.
God, yeah. So, whereas if it was an American, it's like, dude,
Totally. Americans would be so upfront. Yeah. I think Africans as well would probably be a little bit more upfront than the English. So you did that, and then 2008 came.
Yeah, and business became more real in the sense of, I think there was so much money in the city pre-08 for everyone that deals were being done with almost, I mean, I was moving people sometimes without meeting them. I mean, I would call a dude and he'll take an offer. I actually would never meet him. And, you know, in those days, a headhunter would get 35% of the base salary of someone. So you just had to fight more for your work. And I was getting older and starting to think about Nigeria. And, you know, the programming we have, you know, I'm from, you know, this family and there's so much opportunity and also pressure from your friends and relatives saying, what are you doing? Recruitment, come back.
Yeah.
You know, you know who you are.
I wish everyone could see your face the way you did the comeback.
But it's exactly it, right? I kind of played around with the idea and then I decided to give it a shot. Going back over the next few years, looking at opportunities in numerous sectors. Initially, I had an involvement with a company called Nokero, which stands for No Kerosene, which is a great company that is helping people that are living on the poverty line that can't afford diesel or anything for light. And it's a solar powered light bulb. I worked with them for a while, managed to get people like Didier Drogba to be the face of the brand. And
we'll get to your famous friends because you have quite a lot of them.
Well, you know, I still will always remember, and this is Didier, you know, at the height of his
peak of his career.
Yeah, and he did this for no money at all when Coca-Cola and Nike were paying him God knows how much, because he knew how important it is for a child to be able to read and not cough and get ill, or worse, a fire starts. So I was involved in businesses like that, and then did the usual Nigerian man journey of trying to be some kind of oil
mogul.
I don't even know.
Oil mogul, a hustler.
So,
At one point, if you ask people what they did for a job, say, "Oh, I mean, was it oil and gas or something?" And it was nondescriptive. But everyone was in oil and gas.
Yes, I'm in oil and gas. Yeah.
And seemingly everyone was in oil and gas.
And they'd never seen any gas or oil in their life. They wouldn't even know what platform was. They didn't, So you touched on early Misan. Let's dial back. So I guess the Nigerian audience would know your last name, Harriman, I guess. Some would, yeah. I'm not quite Burna Boy, but yeah. But people, I
by
guess.
and large, I think in industry.
Yeah. So my father, my late father was Chief of Harriman, and you know was definitely one of the pioneers in real estate and many other businesses he was involved with. Peak Milk, which is definitely a household name.
I think he was one of the first of a wave of them at that time who were serial entrepreneurs in the Nigerian space, who did it successfully and was a good reference because his peers at that time weren't entrepreneurs.
And also he went, the two Harriman men, Uncle Leslie, my father's brother, my uncle, and himself, and Uncle Leslie went to Oxford and my father went to Cambridge.
Yeah.
In 19... I don't know.
So my dad went to Cranfield Business School, and again, you know, I speak to him about that era. And your late dad is a little older than my dad, but at the time, I think the promise of Nigeria to them was more alluring than living anywhere else. And so a lot of them just wanted to come back.
It must have been an amazing time to come back when they did, because also there were a lot fewer people in the room in terms of opportunities to get involved.
But very few people wanted to take risks. That even saw the ability to take risks. I think my dad's greatest ambition at the time, when I asked him, and he got offers from Guinness and Shell and a few other companies, he really wanted to work for Guinness because again they were the generation that was transitioning, you know, the colonial era and into this new Nigeria.
But they raised one big job for your whole life. Yep.
Exactly. And to be fair, my dad did one big job for his whole life.
I actually envy that kind of stability from, well, we're both in the hustle right now, it's there's nothing wrong with that.
Not at all. As a product of it, I had a lot of perks from it. And so you come from that lineage, and so you have a successful dad, and you are one of 3 kids.
Well, no, I'm one of many more
mum?
kids from my mother. Yeah, you know, I don't think it's anything new. Nigerian men have multiple.
So
families.
polygamous home, basically.
Yeah.
And you were shipped off to the UK at how old?
Oh my God. Too young, little, 5, 6 years old, straight to boarding school.
Your first memories of that?
I was lucky because I suddenly just became a very huge kid. I love to kind of pull the violin out and say I was bullied, but I wasn't. I was just too big. I was just too big to be bullied. If anything, they like seriously, some people thought I was somebody's parent at the school. Yeah, because I was shaving at 9. I was a huge kid.
Are you joking?
No joke.
Okay, leaving Nigeria. I guess when you're much younger, the transition isn't, I guess your consciousness around your environment isn't as stark or isn't as clear.
I was very sporty. So, you know, boys now, you know, before you know it, you're just too busy running around playing rugby, doing athletics. And if you're good at it, you find an identity there. The difference for me is that I was always yearning for something in my emotional engine that was missing. I found that in film and music and arts. And I think because I was at the top of the food chain in terms of physicality, I didn't need to feel I needed to fit in with anyone.
Yes.
You know, 'cause there's no one that could force me to follow them.
Yeah.
So it made me be very daring in looking for things that moved me. I was a kid that always went to the video club in those days. I'd always recommend if we were going to cinema, all of that. So I was curating, if you like, before I even knew what the meaning of that word was. It was not traumatic school. I enjoyed it, if I'm being honest with you. The food wasn't great, and showers twice a week was a bit odd. But
hold on, you guys would shower twice a week?
Twice a week, but then on the other days we get flannelled down by sister, we called her. We actually called her sister, which is like a matron. And she was lovely, but it was, looking back, it was a bit strange. We had shorts in winter term, still had the cane in those days. So it was quite draconian in its setup. It's much more modern now. They had fagging, which is basically official formal bullying, which is ridiculous.
And so you survived that?
I loved it. I wasn't particularly very focused in the classroom. I'm dyslexic, and definitely, even though I was very privileged to go to you know, some of the best schools in this country, they weren't necessarily tooled for how my mind is set up. So I found the classroom very slow, and I felt my mind was always just bored, you know, in how they were trying to give us information. And it wasn't until this thing called the internet arrived into my life that I was able to find a medium that could serve my crazy mind at the pace and the frequency that it needed. Up until that, I was not good at school. I was I wasn't good at written exams. I didn't take the information in because it wasn't given to me the way that my brain needed. But the moment you I had a computer and I went online for the first time, that was it. I just became a different, I feel like a rebirth. Like, you know, literally parts of my brain that had never been used were just, you know, electricity was running through them. And
amazing.
I became a digital hoarder of content.
Would you say that that's what birthed What We See?
I was born to help people see the very best of the human condition. So whether that's me listening to a song and then putting that headphone on just one of my friends for them to feel what I just felt, or whether it's me building a media business that reaches quite a few people now. It's always
quite a few.
But it's always, to me, it's the same thing. Like if I feel something,
yes,
I don't want to keep it to myself. I want as many people as possible to enjoy that.
Okay, so speaking modestly, let me give a few stats in terms of your achievements.
She got receipts.
I've got receipts, y'all. Your bio says you're a publisher.
Yeah.
A social media strategist. Content curation specialist. I think you need to include content creator now.
Yeah, that's new.
Luxury brand consultant, a guru in branded content, and business development.
Yeah, I've tried a few of those. Definitely.
Your bio says that, but what you've omitted, and modestly so, and everyone seems to do this, you've managed to build a community of about 8 million people online. Your average monthly views from Asia, Europe, Africa, Middle East, USA, monthly ranges from anything from 13 million to about 16 million a month.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
From each region.
Yeah, it's bonkers. I know.
And you've had 2 billion video views on your platforms.
Probably 3 billion by now. We haven't updated that in a while. I remember I used to get so excited by numbers in the early days. I mean, I used to
If I get 200 views on an Instagram post, I'm jumping.
Well, it's not. I mean, 200 of the right views can be as important as a gabillion of the wrong views.
But you managed to make a living off your 3 billion views.
Yeah, look, my whole thing is I watched what Jonah Peretti did when he built something called BuzzFeed whilst he was still working for Huffington Post. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the first people to realize that in this new age of publishing, you could build a $1 billion business on digital real estate you don't own. So, BuzzFeed was initially built out of viral videos, out of a lot of clickbait on a website, but really powered by Facebook. And then other pseudo copycat businesses came like Unilad, Lad Bible, there are loads of others now. And all of those businesses have shown that people have, chosen to spend time in the kingdom, if you like, of Zuckerberg. So Instagram, Facebook, and other unicorn social media platforms. And it was a real stark difference from the print media houses that I grew up with. So Hearst and Condé Nast, Elle, Cosmo, Vogue, Vanity Fair, that were very much walled gardens where editor-in-chief was the superstar that controlled everything. You had to either subscribe or go out and buy one. All of that had completely changed. And the transition from print to digital was really exciting because it meant that someone like me that had no experience in print could build a publishing house that could reach millions of people in a couple of years.
But you say that without crediting the fact that you've always been appreciative of beauty, yes, appreciative of the art.
Yes, but there are plenty of people that can say that.
But I think your appreciation of it is not the average. Whether or not that gave you the passport to be able to create what we see in a non-digital age begs the question. But someone like Virgil Abloh or, who isn't a trained designer and who loved the industry and has found a way to be the head of one of the most notable houses.
With a camera. Definitely, Virgil's he's done very well.
And I think when you look at, I guess, third culture kids, because he's also a third culture kid.
Yeah.
I'd love to have him on the podcast, if you know him.
No, I don't. I ran into him at an airport hotel randomly, and I think he thought I was an absolute nutter. Because you know me, I have no filter. I was like, hey, what's up, man? We're going to do something. He's like, okay. I'll see you later.
And I think, again, common thread in the sense that we see the world slightly differently. And I think the power of technology now and in this digitized world is that we have permission now to express the other parts of ourselves that other cultures have helped mold and our own cultures have helped mold. And the openness to say, I am dyslexic, but hey, I dropped out of university and these are my successes and these are my failures. I don't think that we hear that enough in our communities. I don't think that we think about the timeline of life in the right way and in the way that it actually is reality. Because I think as a 18, 19-year-old, if you dropped out of university day 1, hour 2, you're persona non grata really for a while in your family. And you feel like your world's ended, but somehow you have to create this new world. And pre-digital, there were no real references.
No, and
even post-digital of people that look like us, I think, you know.
It's the arrogance of youth as well. I think when you are that age, you kind of have this energy to think, F it, I'm going to figure that out. And then you combine it with the privilege that I know I've had. So what I mean by that, so I'm mentoring a couple of gentlemen, young men that are incredibly talented that have not had the privilege that I've had. And I also went to something called Sales Pitch, which is going to Wandsworth Prison and meeting men. All the men look like me.
Yes.
And talking to them about what they will do when they get out of prison. And one of the overriding things is that none of those men had the same experience as me in terms of the theaters, the museums, the films that I had from the age of 5. And so many of the most important decisions of my life is because I've had this privilege to have a bigger world than somebody who has grown up in a single parent home, that cycle of, so I speak to a lot of those guys and also talk to them and show them content that has had a profound effect on my life.
Yes.
And that is a real reason. If you want to get down to what we see is, I want to democratize availability of life-changing experiences digitally. I do not want it only for people that happened to have won the lottery of life and was born into a wealthy family. And I want all of that experience that I have that has shaped who I am to be given to anyone with two things: an inquisitive mind and an internet connection. If you have those two things, the business that I've founded will take you on a sensory journey that will help you find your own truth.
Well put. Well put. Hey, this is how you're raising the money.
I don't know, my mouth.
But I think that's needed. And I think also people hearing your story is needed, because I think we sometimes lack the clarity to see how people do what they do, the obstacles that they face, especially in our communities. It's not something we talk about. I think you and I are candid about business and the trenches and, and
well,
the
if
ups
you look
and the
at
downs.
the access you and I have, and it's still tough. So imagine not having what we have.
I'm hopeful that Third Culture Africans, that the show gives our peers, the generations to come, a reference point where they can hear your journey and be inspired by it. The businesses that we all create aren't just businesses. They're all, I always say, we all do purposeful work. And I think you do purposeful work, and you've contextualized how what you do is purposeful in our communities and in the lives of anyone who encounters what we see. Beyond that, the responsibility of us being able to present businesses, especially with our heritage. Our businesses aren't just businesses. Our businesses always empower, always shed light on. And historically, the publishing industry is not for people of color. And as Africans, we've always had a community of publishers with our heritage. Digitally, I guess you're one of the pioneers.
There are not many founders of media businesses that are...
Many?
Well, that I'm sure there are people that have a specific niche, but what we see is quite broad in what it does. And
it's content for everyone, right?
It is, but that you always... I will say this, if you really look at it, you say that the person behind this has had quite a multicultural experience, because frankly speaking, I have had a very different life experience than the average sort of editor-in-chief in their corner office in Manhattan, for example. Right?
Yes.
I will want to write about things or have the team research and put things that are not always going to be the obvious things that you're going to see in, sort of Grazia or,
But there's a level of empathy to your work, right? And there's a level of activism to your work, and there is a voice to what we see that is a real world voice. It's a people voice, and it's a voice that allows...
this shouldn't be a rare thing. This is the thing, when people compliment me and I get a little bit like my face screws up and they're like, why are you being... I'm like, because empathy it shouldn't be a unique... You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and in the age of Trump and all this...
But don't forget that the publishing industry was built to serve a purpose. It was built for brands to be able to market to the people that they needed to sell their products to. So the basis of the industry wasn't necessarily about empathy. Even the news channels were businesses. And they were used as tools for political gain or whatever.
Definitely political gain. That's almost more important than the advertising. That was,
So when you're surprised by the idea that empathy is lacking, same as your approach to publishing has empathy because of your broad experience and vast experience of life.
I mean, we don't care if something gets 1 like or 1 million. I always tell the team that you need to publish heart first. So if there's any piece of content that has moved you and is on brand with what we represent, then let's stick it up there. There are a lot of publishing platforms that will test something, and if it doesn't get 50 likes in the first 10 seconds, they'll just pull it. So they're hacking an algorithm rather than publishing. So, I feel what we see is a business built by a human algorithm, because everything that has been published by us, somebody in the team has really been taken somewhere by the post. And frankly speaking, you can see the results. We're sent hundreds, if not thousands of emails every month by people saying, we don't know how you guys do it. We don't, but thank you. It's nice having this safe harbor of interesting stories, music, films, artwork that is good for my mental health, but also teaches me more about our wider earth.
And I do agree. Personally, I look forward to the posts. I find them, I don't know if the word educational is the right word for it, but I do find them to be a new lens into the world that I perhaps wouldn't have experienced. And I do enjoy what you share. And through that, there's an element of sharing yourself.
Which initially I didn't want. So I remember I used to call myself Mr. What We See. I was so paranoid about it. I hated the idea of influencers. I'm still not crazy about the influencer culture of this age. But when I started it, I just wanted it to be about the content.
Yeah.
But more and more, I've been dragged in, and my whole sort of story is a big.
But it's a bit impossible not to have you. Because a large part of the vision or the direction of the content that is on What We See is built off of your mind. It's like that movie, A Beautiful Mind.
Oh, what a movie.
Before he tips the scales and goes overboard. But like the movie A Beautiful Mind, if a business is built off of one person's mind as a blueprint, you cannot not be there. And it's something I struggle with. And hence I'm doing something like this, because I find that for a long time, the relationship between me and Malay was something that I shied away from, especially in the early days when you haven't achieved any success.
Yeah, that's true.
And in the early days, you can't own something because the benchmark of success in world terms or your community terms or your friendship circle or whatever prevents you from actually going, you know what, I own this. This is my best work. And this is the best work I can put out. And whether it's one person or 10 people, or if I don't make the headlines, or I haven't been published in a magazine, or I haven't had an editorial written about me, I don't care.
It's really difficult to have that attitude at the beginning. But once you've been through
the trenches, then you don't care.
You don't care.
Then it's about doing work that brings you joy.
And you know why you're doing it. So
and I think, like you say, those emails of people, the one person that touches you. This new year, I got tagged on a few posts, and there was a lady who tagged me on a post that said, for inspiring her through the last decade. I couldn't believe it. I think what we don't see beyond this is how impactful, Tyler Perry says, carry on your vision, but you have no idea how many people's dreams are based off of yours.
And that's the good part of sharing your story. And if you can manage to do that whilst being yourself, what I was always scared of is I look at some of these influencers and they're just taking the mickey. It's just a creation, know, and I know that's not my personality anyway, because I'm always fiercely
brutally honest.
But I initially didn't want to do that. But no, you have to be able to let other people know that there's a seat at the table for them to try and do what you've done as a founder, as a woman, as a mother, all of those things. If you share that in a really honest way, of course people are going to respond to it.
So you've touched on activist Misan.
Well, it sounds like I'm in the front line somewhere with that.
I think you're always honest about the causes you care about. I've got down in my notes, feminist, civil and human rights activists. I think through What We See has helped you make differences.
Yeah, massively, because of the reach we have and the influence of that reach.
Was that conscious to bring that part of yourself?
Yeah, I think when we got over a couple of million followers, I was like, bloody hell, we can, I can probably start saying the earth is a strange shape. And people, even if 10% of our followers believe that's a shed load of people.
It is,
So I realized that and then I got more and more obsessed and upset by what I call the weaponization of mediocrity, which is the internet of this age, where too much low rent content was being normalized. Especially upset with how young women were following incredibly influential. I mean, Jamila Jamil said this better than anyone. When a 14-year-old girl is idolizing someone that sells lollipops that suppresses your hunger, we have a flipping issue. There's no, that is not any approved by any kind of medical board when men think it's okay to do what many idiots like Vitali and I don't know if you know who he is, and who was that other complete plonker with the machine guns, always in Vegas with, a whole bunch of bikini clad, and they get likes and followers, and I'm like, it's not good enough. We have to show whether or not Kevin, Mark, and all the other big founders don't care and they want freedom of speech. There is a point where you have to curate a better experience.
Yes.
And that's one of the things, if you talk about activism, I want any woman that goes onto What We See will hopefully see inspirational stories of people that look like them, people that they maybe had never heard of. So I have a hashtag called WWS Women, which is just incredible stories of women that have done things. And
I think it shows the beauty of real women with a richness to them.
But also I put tragedy. I remember when I found that story of a woman called Evelyn Frances McHale who jumped out of the Empire State Building in, I think, the 40s, and she landed on the roof of a UN limousine, and a photograph was taken of her that it's a stunning photograph of a young woman that's left this earth.
Yeah.
And I did a talk and told a whole room of women this story, and we don't know why she killed herself. But I don't know how many LinkedIn messages from people saying, you know what, so many of their friends that they think are going through mental health issues, they haven't bothered emailing or checking in, and after that they all said, you know what, let's check in on them.
I think in our community, I think people are quick to judge, less likely to reach out and go, how do I help this person? How do we come together to help this person out of, because I think for us, morals and values are very much, contextualized differently. And I guess it's because our lack of transparency around mental health, our lack of transparency around the accountability in our friendship groups, around keeping each other sane, to be fair, and nurturing our relationships in a healthy manner that allow us to move forward. Sorry to interject, but...
No, it's the biggest. Mental health, more than anything else, is the biggest thing that What We See is focusing on right now.
Yeah. I think for a while you guys did a lot of emotional growth.
Yes.
And self-growth. And then it was about the art of life and the beauty in life.
That's fine. But you need to be in a place to even want to grow, right?
Yeah, very true. Very true.
So, we're putting our battle armor on and going out. We're leaving. We've grown a beautiful sort of tribe online, but we're actually going to the physical realm this year and going out to schools, hospitals, corporates, and installing What We See little media hubs where anyone can put on a headphone and watch content that we think will be good for the wellness of your mind.
Amazing.
Because I'm not happy to just wait for people to find us anymore. We're going to go and find them. So that's how important it is for us.
We touched on photographer.
Photos. Yeah.
Okay, so before I get into that, I always do a part of the show where I get everyone to say their name properly.
Okay.
Because I probably have even said your name incorrectly too. So what is the proper pronunciation of your name?
So I'm Shekiri, from Wari Sapele Kuku, and my full name is Misan. So everyone calls me Misan, but it's Misan, and my middle name is my father's first name, Hope, which is easy. Okay. And my surname is actually an English surname, Harriman. So the only bit you have to really get is Misan.
Yeah.
Misan Hope Harriman. But most people call me Misan, 2 syllables, apart from, of course, in English boarding school, they couldn't manage Misan, so they all call me Harry, which is also 2 syllables. So I don't understand how they could say Harry and not
but
Misan.
Not Misan.
I mean, really.
So, photographer Misan.
Yes.
This is post famous friendships with your tennis friend.
Yes. The German.
Yeah, you've had some notably famous friendships over the years.
Look, you meet people in life, and some of them are famous, some of them are not. I don't ever plan to hang out with famous folk. It never happens that way.
But you're a likable guy.
Well...
And you're a social chameleon. Not intently.
I think I'm friendly. If there's depth beyond that friendship, and also when people that don't trust people easily see that you don't have an agenda, and they can maybe learn from this person or have a healthy relationship, maybe that's why I've connected with some notable names over the years. But a lot of it is just super random, like meeting someone here or someone's dating this person. That, this is my new boyfriend, this is my new girlfriend, and you meet. It's very, very. But random.
I've watched you in one of the clubs, right?
One of the clubs. Okay.
Literally, I was sat there across from you, and it was super straightforward. And then you just broke out into conversation with a random girl who was actually pissed at us for, oh, can I swear? I haven't decided if I should be swearing on my show yet.
You should.
Okay. And she was upset. Let me use proper language because my mum probably just went, oh my God. And she was upset at us for talking. I think we're talking so loud and we're talking about you editing. And you're like, oh, I'm done. And I'm like, oh my God, you did that so quickly. And we were disrupting the piece, right?
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And you didn't even realize what was going on.
No.
And then when I walked away, you broke out into a full conversation. So you're like, oh, so what's your name? What are you doing here? Have you been a member of this club for a while?
Yeah. No, I am. So a lot of my friends have met their partners through me. In the real single days.
AKA Cupid.
Well, because I was, let me put it this way. If we're in a club and I'm with my boys, I was probably the only one that didn't need any Dutch courage at all. I didn't need to drink anything. And I had no shame in walking up to a group of women and saying, hey, would you like to join us? Just introducing myself. And yes, sometimes some of the women would be like, ew, go away. We don't know you. And that's also fine. But I think so many people were scared of walking, into that void.
Again, case in point, how we met.
Yeah, I have no issue with that. Yeah. And I've done that my whole life. And then I'll drag all my boys are all sitting there with their shoes shining, looking very good. I was like, all right, guys, you can, and they'll just herd over like cattle. Yes. And then, the rest is history. Yeah. But without me, without that ice breaking.
Yeah.
And in fact, there are a couple of friends of mine, and I shouldn't be saying this, but I will. They would be chatting up women and they're like, Misan, look, I don't have any of your lyrics. I beg, please help me. So I would text them what to say.
Yes.
And then they would copy and paste it.
Oh God.
And send it to the girl. And it was really great up until the point where the woman had agreed to meet up with them on a date.
And it's like a different guy.
And they're like,
who are you?
So during dates, I would have guys say, what should I say next? And I'll be typing and say, okay, talk about this. What color are her eyes? Okay, what when's the last time she cried? Okay, fine.
When's the last time she cried?
So I have a template.
One of your lines?
Yeah. Because you ask someone. I love asking people when they last cried because it's like you're asking about their emotional engine, and then you run with that, and then you can open up.
Dating
and another
tips.
thing I love doing is taking women on dates to a place called Don Le Noir in Clerkenwell, which was the restaurant where you had dinner in pitch black.
Yeah.
And I love taking, if I met a woman that I thought was a little bit into herself, there's nothing better than both
breaking
of us
that
not being
down,
able. And a lot of those ladies would actually get very, very emotional and say things they would never do in a nice restaurant.
Oh wow! Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that dating tip.
Tricks.
Now, is that the magic source to the power in your photography?
What, dating?
No, your ability to read or understand people and their primal natures.
Yeah, I think a connection helps, but an understanding of light. You see, yes, I only picked up a camera properly only a few years ago, but my obsession with photography, as in obsession with, all the greats from, Sally Mann, Eve Arnold, Gordon Parks, it just goes on and on, has been real. It's a very real thing. And I think I've been looking at black and white pictures for as long as I can remember. Yeah. So I just see, and also I shoot for black and white. So contrast and light and composition is very important to me. Marry that with my ability to make people feel very comfortable very quickly.
Yes.
And also being utterly fearless in what I ask people to try and do. I think that is the combination that results in pictures that maybe have a little bit of pop to them.
A little bit
of pop, yeah.
So you've shot everyone from...
I certainly have not shot everyone.
Hey, I'm about to make a list. You've shot everyone. You shot Princess Beatrice. Yep. You did her engagement photo shoot.
Yes, I did. And that was lovely.
I don't think that's normal for a 2-year-old photographer.
Hey.
Meghan?
Yes, Duchess of Sussex. It was a pleasure to do a very candid...
Oh, I say that. That's improper of me to call her Meghan, isn't it?
You said it, not me.
I'm a commoner. I should address her properly. Helen Mirren?
No, oh yes, I have. God, I was about to deny Helen. Oh, yes, I have.
Helen? Stormzy?
Yeah. Stormzy. I've shot him a couple of times. Lovely
William
man.
Neeson?
Liam, yes.
Naomi
Campbell, yes, I have. Yes.
Janet?
Because I've done Naomi Scott as well, so I was like thinking which one.
Janet Jackson?
Yeah, so that's when I put on my Instagram my fanboy moment where I almost melted.
Did your teenage self just like...
Listen, man, particularly Janet was a huge part of me when I was actually going through quite a lot of difficult, those awkward years. I mean, Let's Wait a While, all those songs mean a lot to me, right? Seeing her, I'm known to have met a lot of famous people, right?
Yes.
I never get starstruck, right? I just lost it. I really did.
Yeah, but
and
what's
she was with Rihanna.
Sweating and screaming.
Who's also quite famous, right? I barely acknowledged Rihanna. It was the weirdest thing. I just didn't. Rihanna's lovely. She was so sweet, polite, beautiful.
Yeah.
I just saw my Janet.
You saw Janet?
I saw my Janet.
Janet.
Hey, gosh. What do you mean?
Janet.
I'm showing my age.
Janet.
That was
Janet.
my Janet. Hey, God. And Cornelius, the lovely young man that came with me to do the winners' room at the British Fashion Awards, was filming. I didn't know he was actually filming something.
Oh my God, so he got your reaction.
He got the BTS, and I was just like, oh dear me. So I posted it saying, whatever, man, I'm not going to pretend I'm this cool guy that never gets phased. I was phased.
In the face of some of the experiences you've had, you were out in Riyadh recently. You've done some incredible photojournalistic work or reportage work in the last, I would say, year. Yeah,
so famous people is great, but I also want my lens to observe the human condition. So I've been at the front line at climate march, Extinction Rebellion, the big Trump protest in London, and I recently went to interview and observe the youth of Saudi Arabia, the first time they were allowed to have a proper knees up, if you like. And this is a country where 70% of the population is under 30. A lot of the images are yet to be published because of some sensitivity around that, but it was extraordinary to see especially women, I have to say, the women I met in Saudi Arabia, independent business owners that are hustling, really working, not dependent on their families. Also that there is a middle and a working class there was very interesting to me. Also that there is a huge black, sort of tribe in Saudi that's been there for millennia. I mean, literally, right? Yeah. That I didn't really know about. So it was not anything like what I expected in the sense of the people that I was lucky enough to have quite candid conversations with. But that's for a whole nother dinner, I think.
Fantastic. So how does everyone find you? What We See?
The internet.
Yes.
I'm online.
Yes. Cash you online.
Yeah. What We See has maybe 12, 13 Instagram pages, but you can go to the main hub of WWS Digital, or What We See on Instagram. Our main website is What We See. And then for me, Misan, I am on Instagram, Misan Harriman, and then my Facebook keeps growing. Facebook's going nuts at the moment.
Yeah.
It's growing very, very fast. That's where I share some of my imagery. I have a little page called Portrait of a Soul where I do some of my more candid photography, but I curate every Instagram page myself. It's really important that I still do that. It keeps me, it keeps me like in the wild with everyone else.
Yes.
Because, when you get to the scale that we have, I feel you can hire people to do things and then you lose why you were doing this in the first place. So I literally update like 7 or 8 pages every day. Black and white vaults, which is a beautiful, I don't know if you follow.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's a lovely
Gorgeous.
Little thing. So yeah, still curating, fundraising, diversifying the business to do many more things. So we're doing a great event schedule. We did some lovely events last year.
Yes, that was beautiful.
With the big event at the Serpentine. We're going to be doing more festivals. We're going to be working with Mama Group that run Love Box and Wilderness.
Amazing.
The photography is marrying very well with What We See. So lots of potential projects there, and trying to be a somewhat present father,
family man,
and yeah.
How have you found? Again, this is something we don't talk about often. Parenting, fatherhood, motherhood.
It's coming from a more traditional. Definitely, my father was a kind of speak when you're spoken to father, right? And I'm such an emotive, kind of warm person that I knew 2 things. I knew I'd have a daughter. Yes. I just knew it.
Yeah.
And I knew that relationship would be so important to me that I am present as much as I can be. Because I feel that a lot of my childhood, like many people from my sort of background. The father wasn't even expected to be there, to be honest with you. He was providing Abby.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing that. Camilla and I aren't like that. We're massively hands-on with the dog too. My firstborn, let's not forget about Nelson. It's been extraordinarily education. I think I've learnt more from Isabella, my daughter, than so far I've taught her.
I would agree.
And that is something I never predicted.
Our daughters are similar in age.
Very similar in age.
And I think every day is a marvel, and every day is a gift. And it definitely puts into context life and hearing them starting to express themselves.
Yeah. And how they fight for their place in the world without you. You know, there's so much that you think you're teaching them, but they're actually beyond that. And I find that amazing. But I want to also touch on women. One thing I didn't know before becoming a father is the amount of nuances and complexities of life choices and hard work and sacrifices that women have to make to be a mother. It is
incredulous.
No, but it's like you can't know that until you're witnessing it, right?
But I think lots of men witness it but don't necessarily appreciate it.
Then they're douchebags. Sorry.
We went there on this episode. I feel like we need a part 2. I've enjoyed having you on the show. I hope you've thoroughly enjoyed being on the show.
Listen, a big part of what we have to do is lift each other. And when you ask me, I'm so shit, excuse my French, in organising. Without Camilla, honestly, I don't know where I'll be. But it wasn't, when you asked me to do it, it wasn't never in my mind that I wouldn't do it. And I think that's how we have to be. If there are people that are within our network that are hustling and they're on their own path, every little thing that you can do to help them, you have to do that.
Yeah.
And it's really, really important. And again, our brothers and sisters, I've spoken to you about this, so many people from our own community, I think when they get to a place of success, they can sit on an island.
Very much so. But I think it's the mentality. We're taught that, and I guess this is why we have to do it differently. And this is why our spaces need to be spaces that allow for the next generation to join in, to participate, and with the ability to create spaces that allow that to happen now digitally, much more easier than your immediate network. As you said, we're both very privileged and fortunate to have our immediate networks be a large chunk of people who have done great cultural things with their own personal endeavors, chasing their own visions and their own dreams. But there are people out there, like you rightly pointed out, who have the same ability but just don't have the reference points or the exposure to be able to achieve.
Well, they're just not in the rooms. I mean, how many times have you been in a meeting or a conference where literally...
I'm the only one. If I'm in Africa, I'm lucky if the one of the camera assistants or the cleaner walks past. And I think that's why this was so important for me, because I feel like as we carry on, we have a responsibility to document our experiences. I think this is what we lack from your father's generation and the generation after that. I think we have the unique ability to now document that for ourselves and also for the generations coming, because we're doing it on a global scale now. And these businesses and these endeavors are transitioning into a different space, and it's creating the reference point or possibilities in people's minds. I always refer to going to the Davido concert when he did it and he sold out the O2. And I said to a friend of mine, what if when you were in high school or university, you saw this be possible? Would you have made the same decisions? And I think looking at some of our peers who have some talents or are in a career that really isn't doing much for them, but are stuck in a rut, or who...
Or they stay for the money.
Again, none of us do this for the money. I wish we all did.
That's rare. I mean, 95% of people... I mean, we go to some of the same members clubs, and I'll sit in the, having a drink or having a cigar, and 3 or 4 men who are earning way more money than me come in and they talk about themselves and what they're doing. And I'm like, they're not living.
No.
They're existing in a construct that they have been raised or society has made for them. But their empathy engine, their emotional engine is not really switched on yet. And it actually is exactly what you said. It's an example of you are being what you're exposed to. And you add that with a little bit of capitalism, a little bit of cashola, because they can afford the skiing holidays, they can afford the nice cars, they can afford going on shoots on estates.
Yes.
And they feel that they have arrived.
Yeah.
Whereas you can read a Pablo Neruda poem
Yes.
and get more from that single poem than their whole career. So you tell me which choice you want to make.
And I think that is it, right? I think for every guest on the show, and including yourself, I think the common thread is that there's something about joy, understanding that life is beyond acquisition.
But nice things are nice. But
we both like nice things.
Yes,
and we all like nice things.
But you have to make sure, even when you have the means to buy something, that you're doing it because you want to. I think, especially in big parts of our own culture, you can go to certain places in Nigeria and everyone will have the same car.
Yeah.
Every woman will have a variation of the same Birkin. Am I lying?
Or just the expectation that you should have certain things at a certain level in life.
Yeah, but you're doing that to be seen, to have them, instead of, I drove a smart car for a long time in my youth, not because I couldn't afford another car, it's because I bloody loved it. I could park anywhere. And I remember Nigeria guys saying, Misan, now I see my range.
But we have a shame culture, and there's something about our lack of emotional education that leads to a cycle. And when a young African guy is raised on shame, his need to achieve success and how he navigates his life, or even a young African woman based around shame, creates the cycle that, a lot of us don't want to repeat, and creates this hollowness in acquisition. And benchmarking and goal posting.
And no growth. No growth. And that's, you always have to grow. If there's one thing we can really just sort of kind of point out here, is that I have friends who I love dearly, but sometimes when I look at our WhatsApp correspondence, it's the same conversation I was having with them 15 years ago, and that's not good enough. Okay? We have to grow. And I push back on my friends saying, why the fuck are you sending me that?
Yeah.
Come on, man. There's so much more to talk about in this world. There's so much more we can discuss and share together as friends.
Yes.
I don't want to see that shit anymore.
Yeah. So how does a young person who can't define where their expression needs to be channeled, but knows deep in their minds, in their hearts, that they have something special, how do they begin? Where do they start? How do they explore
it's curation. You have to choose what you put into your mind.
Yeah.
So with a lot of young folk, I actually have a list. I send them a list. I make sure they fully understand the Nina Simone story, and I've digested that story. They understand all the players of the civil rights movement in America and in Africa, the continental, I then curate films that, as a black person, really hit me. And they're not just films with a black cast, they're just films that hit me, and that's ranging from, Jungle Fever particularly hit me. A lot of the early Spike Lee stuff, Love Jones really hit me, because Love Jones had middle class black people that weren't gangbangers, that were into poetry, that were really looking for love. They were, and I was like, goodness gracious. So all of those things.
The myth that is love in African culture, by the way, because it's no one believes it exists. Or very few people believe it exists. And I think one of the beauties of what we see is that you guys celebrate that. And you champion it in all its forms.
And vulnerability we champion. So, I met Camilla. She's
Shout out to Camilla. She's an incredible woman.
But I also, we met each other at a time where we had been through a lot. And we fell in love by feeling each other's scars, like Braille. And I'm very open about that. You have to show to your friends and partners, warts and all, because we're not perfect.
No.
And we make mistakes. And that's literally, it wasn't like, I didn't project how fabulous my life was to her at all. I showed her that, I'm a bit of a mess right now, but it's me. this is who I am, you know?
Well, Misan, it's been an incredible show having you, and hopefully everyone has a big grin on their face like I do.
Hey, thank you for listening. Very good. Very, very good. No, I'm taking over.
Okay.
So, Zeze,
this is my show.
me.
This is my show.
No, I'm just being silly. But no, really, really kind. I know everything that, not everything, but I know some of the peaks and troughs that this remarkable woman sitting opposite me has been going through. Like we all go through, but I'm a bit more privy to it than maybe some of y'all. And it is inspiring to see someone grow with grace and a determination to be as good a woman, businesswoman, friend, mother, dancer.
Oh, shucks. Thank you.
As she can be. And I think one thing I'll just say to you is, Madame, just stay on this road.
Thank you.
And we will follow you.
Thank you so much.
God, I sound like a priest.
Oh, God. Thank you so much. This is Third Culture Africans, guys. There is no script. Thank you for tuning in this week, and we'll catch you on next week's episode.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Third Culture Africans, the lifestyle podcast. We would love to hear from you. So please find us on Facebook or Instagram at Third Culture Africans and leave us a comment. A review goes a long way in getting our show noticed. So please leave us one if you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next time.